Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce and beyond to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million as you up arrow your business and your personal life. Building a company changes you, but building authority changes how the world responds to you. Today's guest has spent his career helping leaders cross that invisible line from successful to undeniable. Kevin Anderson grew up poor on a farm in rural Canada, worked oil rigs and rodeos, and eventually became a #1 New York Times bestselling editor, a #1 national bestselling author, founder of multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses, and the CEO of the prestigious book writing firm Kevin Anderson and Associates. He's helped create over 600 national bestsellers and worked with billionaires, celebrities, and founders who wanted their ideas to outlive them. This conversation is about why books still matter, what they unlock beyond sales, and how founders can think about legacy without losing focus on growth. Kevin, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I do want to give a quick shout out to James Bracken over at Book Thinkers for putting us in touch. James, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks, James. Great to work with.
Yeah. So last interruption, and then we'll get right into the good stuff. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. Okay, there was an episode, I don't know if you remember this, of Boy Meets World, where Mr. Feeney tells Corey Matthews, he goes, "It's in the book. It's on the board. It's in the book." And I think the point that he was trying to make was true wisdom comes from life experience, not just memorizing facts. And I think a lot of founders can relate to that. We tend to be the get stuff done mentality where we bury our noses in our spreadsheets and ideas and power through. And that drives a lot of our early success. And then we get stuck because we forget about the second part of that quote. It's in the book. Eventually, the best things, the best moments, the best ideas, they get written down in a book, memorialized for posterity, a legacy. We have tons of new media, podcasts like this one, but there's still just something about books that seems to cement someone as a true thought leader. Kevin, why do you think that is?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons. A book is a longer piece, and it's not like a quick article or a blog post. I mean, you really have to have something weighty to say if you're going to use up 200 to 300 pages to say it. I mean, it has a lot of depth to it, which in and of itself shows that you have to be an expert on the topic or have something meaningful to say that can't just be captured in a short form. And the other major thing is that a book is timeless. Articles, posts, social media, they come and go. They're quick. They're in and out. Whereas a book is something that lasts a long time. I mean, we're still reading books that were released hundreds of years ago, and so it really does last the test of time.
Let's talk about the hidden game. You told me that you can't buy your way on the Bloomberg or Good Morning America. But interestingly, everybody seems to have a book that's on there. Right. What's the unspoken rule that media seems to follow that founders don't understand?
Yeah, I mean, media wants relevant experts that are relevant and up to date on the topic, right? So when they're looking for someone to comment on a certain topic, or they want to have a guest on to inform on whatever's trending, they're going to want someone ideally who has a book on the topic that shows. Again, it shows if they've got a whole book's worth of stuff to say about it, they must know something about it and be some sort of an expert. And if it's a book that's released recently, especially, then they feel like it's going to have updated information that they're going to be able to give value to their audience. So you'll notice time and again when there's guests on certain shows or talking heads or even on podcasts, they'll often have a book that's recently released because they are looking for subject matter experts that are not only subject matter experts on the topic, but that are recently so. So you're not going to be looking for, an AI expert that came out with a book, 5 years ago.
Sure.
They're going to be looking for someone that just published a book on AI to give some knowledge and insight on the topic.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you think about that because the immediacy of all of the different things that are on, let's say YouTube even, for instance, or TikTok, and like there is some like immediate relevancy. But to your point, it doesn't take a whole lot to really think through some of those things. And it does. There's some really, really good videos, but to be able to put that all into a book, to your point, it's like there's something about, like, I've even found myself, I learn from writing. I feel like I get better at whatever it is that I'm trying to explain in the process of writing this out in a blog post. I can only imagine that that's even amplified more by writing a book.
Yeah, absolutely. And most authors, when they start writing their book, it's amazing to see as they go through the process of writing, what comes out, like stuff they didn't even think was going to be in the book starts to come out as you really, it's hard. A lot of entrepreneurs, especially, and founders, they don't realize how much of their knowledge and their skills are just innate and that are just inside their brain. And they just do these things automatically in the course of their leading their businesses or growing their businesses. When you have to start to put it into words and organize it into a framework that has a table of contents and that flows logically from one thing to another and covers all the topics, it's really formative. It really helps you to identify exactly kind of what you do and why and how. And we found that, especially with business owners and executives, they often don't even realize what it is that they do and why they do it so well until they put it into a book, because they're forced to put it into words and really identify what it is exactly that's making them tick or making them into a good leader. And so writing a book is very formative. It's a real journey of self-discovery.
When you're somebody who's, let's just say, at Good Morning America and you're looking for the guests that you want here, and you said that there's something about a book that helps, what boxes does a best-selling book seem to check that a podcast or blog or some other viral content just doesn't seem to capture?
Yeah, there's something, people are genuinely, and rightfully so, can be skeptical of just number of views or number of likes. Who knows what those likes are? Maybe someone's got a billion followers. Well, not a billion followers, but you might have a billion views on a music video, for instance. I think Sabrina Carpenter has a few of those, or a video might have 300,000 likes, but where are they coming from? And there's a lot of, obviously, there's a lot of tomfoolery that goes on with spiking likes and different things that are going on, electronically that, to kind of make us not trust the numbers. But when you have a book, something that's got like a New York Times bestseller, or USA Today bestseller, something, that's a real mark of integrity and authenticity and also just of authority. So when a show like Good Morning America is looking for an author to place on their show, and if it's a New York Times bestselling author, that has a lot of weight and credibility to it. That they can't just say their videos get 100,000 likes. That's impressive, but it's not as trusted. The New York Times bestseller list has been around for a long time, and to be able to hit that list is really prestigious. So it's something that carries a lot of weight with a lot of different media.
Yeah, there's different trust factors, right? And so I want to come to that, but I have to take a slight tangent. You mentioned Sabrina Carpenter. I didn't even go there. I have teenage daughters. I'm quite familiar with a lot of Sabrina Carpenter's music. What's your favorite Sabrina Carpenter song right now?
Oh my gosh. I like the Please, Please, Please. I know it's old, but that's a great song. It gets stuck in my head. It's catchy. I'm a 15-year-old girl, so I know more. I'm fully versed on modern pop music. But what's amazing what's amazing now though with these kids, like she's 15, but because of the access that they have to music, she goes down the route. She knows all the 80s songs. She knows Led Zeppelin. She knows Beatles. She has instant access. When we were growing up, you had to go to a record store, or you could hear it on the radio, maybe if you're lucky. I didn't have FM radio where I grew up, so I couldn't even, hear what the latest pop or rock hits were. But yeah, so she just has everything. Like one song will be, it'll be Pink Floyd, and the next will be Sabrina Carpenter. And it's hard to keep up. A
good diverse range, but you got to throw a little polka in there to really round her out.
Yeah, we'll see. The only polka she knows is what is from Home Alone when they're in the bus with John Candy. I think that's the extent of her polka knowledge.
That's a good entry song, a good gateway into polka. Okay, so back to this trust, and to your point. So what's interesting about musicians and why I like this is I've found something similar to be true in music as well as other things. When it comes to trust, there's the billion views, things like that, and let's just say like the mainstream trust authority. But then there's like this niche authority, and I find this for a lot of e-commerce brands as well, where you can find something that maybe a lot of people think is cool, but it doesn't become truly cool or almost iconic until like it's like the elite people within that space also think it's cool. And when they do, then all of a sudden the masses go after it. And that's where you find like this really good, I don't know, like this moment where things catch on fire. And I feel like that's maybe true then based on what you're saying, even with like this book where it's like, there are a lot of other ways and these other media formats can give you some of this initial reach, but then that book cements you not just with the general public, but with the elite. And the elite then in whatever that space, they have something to point to and say, yeah, this is legit. You know what you're talking about. You know what you're doing. And that almost gives permission to everybody else to kind of jump on that bandwagon a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you have, for instance, a classic example is getting a notable, a PhD in your subject matter will put a forward or put an endorsement. I mean, endorsements in general can be really effective because they show the caliber of person that agrees with you or is at least supporting your ideas that you have in the book. And that authority piece is really interesting because, and this is a reason why some self-published authors can really struggle because they don't, when you have a self-published book, there's no editorial review, there's no editorial filter. Anyone can self-publish anything. So when you're trying to get media, that's the reason. I mean, there's lots of reasons to self-publish. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely publishing agnostic. There's lots of great reasons someone should self-publish, or use a hybrid publisher. But when you're trying to get that real A quality elite media, it's going to be really tough. And when you have, with a self-published book, when you have something like HarperCollins stamped on the back of it or Random House, that signals to them that there's been a vetting process, that there's been professional editors that have reviewed this. They're not going to have something embarrassing that's going to be in this book.
Good point.
And so that's one of the big reasons why not just like a bestseller, but just having a traditional publisher can help open a lot of doors for authors and get them, like you said, that kind of prestige, high caliber endorsements that can really give something that credibility beyond just being kind of a sensation. I mean, the reverse can happen. You can definitely still get there with a self-published book, but there's just so many things that have to happen, like, to legitimize it before you're going to be trusted with, in like a national media setting.
Yeah. I'm definitely a believer that founders need to have a book at some point in time. You've worked with billionaires, somebody like Tom Golisano or billionaire sports owner, like decides to write a book. What business or personal problem are they trying to solve? They don't necessarily need to grow their business necessarily in the same way that I would think of like a lot of other founders, but like what are they trying to solve?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a couple different reasons that someone will write a book that's at that level. And so, you mentioned the billionaire sports owner. We've worked with a couple of them. One is worth about $10 billion. He also owns like a large food related company. And there's a couple. So his specific reason was really just passionate about his values as a business owner, wanted to share that, and also wanted to just get that extra push of publicity to draw attention to his company, his business interests. And it did. I mean, it hit the New York Times bestseller list. It sold, I think, 200,000 copies or something like that.
Awesome.
But, it really, the book got him in a whole bunch of different media and different blogs and different, like the conversations that people are having about the book, none of those would have happened without having the book. So it really opened up a whole bunch of conversations and media and visibility that he otherwise wouldn't have had. Other billionaires or people that are really highly successful. For instance, this guy you mentioned, Tom Golisano. Yep. So you'll see that there's two books now. He didn't come to us wanting two books. He came to us wanting to write this one, a memoir. So he had accomplished a lot. He founded Paychex, a $40-50 billion company. He founded it on a $3,000 credit card. He also owned the Sabres eventually and whatnot. But what he really built was this $1 billion company from nothing. His stories are amazing. Like how one day, when they were running, they actually literally ran the payrolls to people on bikes.
Wow.
Something was wrong with the mailing service or whatever. They couldn't trust it, so they actually were putting people on bikes and sending them biking their paychecks.
That's so good.
So and now he's I think he's worth something like 7 or 8 billion. Anyway, he came to us because he really felt like a lot of people were saying, "Hey, you've done all these amazing things. We really want to hear all your life story." So he came to us wanting to write a memoir. Problem was, the only people that really knew him or cared were the people that were in his circle, and the broader audience just really didn't know who he was. They knew the company, but and what a lot of people don't realize that even celebrities that have millions of followers, a memoir, it's a real niche kind of a book. And a lot of people actually really don't care that much to buy a book and read it about their life story for in most cases. And that's like a celebrity status, never mind, a business owner. But he came to us wanting to do a memoir. And basically the message that we said was, I get it, legacy, leave your legacy, have something that people can know you by forever. And, your grandchildren and great-grandchildren will all have this book about your life. But it's going to be really hard to sell that to a publisher. Like you're not going to really, it's not a book that's really going to sell. So what we did was he said, why don't we write this one first, a book to entrepreneurs, a book about how to build a business, a book that has practical application and that you're an authority in. This is something that we can really reach. This is something we can not only get a publisher to buy, but that's going to get you all the visibility. Like that's going to get you on Bloomberg. That's going to get you on all the shows. That's because you have a message and a target audience. Like we know, like entrepreneurs, we can target that. Whereas a memoir, like that's such a broad audience, and it's really like a novel. You really got to connect to it, like creatively and emotionally. Whereas a business book has a clear application and a clear audience. So we went with that first. It sold to HarperCollins for over $500,000, and became a Wall Street Journal bestseller. He was all over the place, tons of media. It was great for Paychex, the company, because it was getting all kinds of visibility and media that it never would have otherwise. He also did an interesting thing with that book where he used it as a sales tool on the ground. So what happened? So they had, I think they have something like 50, I think they have at the time they had like 15 or 16,000 employees, and a good portion of those were salespeople. And he gave every single salesperson had a bunch of these copies in their trunk. And when they would go to sales meetings with these small business owners, because Paychex is largely serving entrepreneurs and small businesses, they would give this book as part of that meeting, a tangible asset that established authority, also gives personality to the company, because it's got it's actually their founder and CEO's book and message. And also, and it was something, that's not just going to get lost like a business card or something like that. And so I think they gave out, I think it was in the tune of hundreds of thousands of these books, because they do a lot of sales meetings. And it was really a major asset for their sales team. They loved it. And then, because that did so well, hit the bestseller list, guess what? We were able to sell this one, the memoir. Now we had an audience that we'd built that we knew was buying books, and that's what allowed us to sell this one to HarperCollins. But it was really so this is a message that we have to a lot of founders. There's a lot of founders, or just successful business people in general, they make the mistake of these fireside chats they have with people, and I want to hear all your stories. I want to know your life story. You should write a book. They hear this all the time. You should write a book. But what they don't realize is that selling your life story without a meaningful application makes it really hard to have a book that you can actually sell to a publisher or to individuals. Book buyers usually, there's a reason why. There's going to be a promise to the reader that's going to solve a problem for them, and that's the reason why they're going to buy the book. So our message to a lot of the big business people is just, don't think of this as a legacy piece only. Think of it as like, what problems can my book solve? What have I learned over the course of my life that I can give to somebody else? And that's what's going to give you that the ability to write a book that's going to actually get sold and then accomplish a lot of things that you want, like getting that media, getting all that stuff. There would have been none of that would have been possible with just starting with a memoir.
I love this idea of billionaires. Let me take it back to the majority of our audience. They're maybe doing 10, 25, 50 million, right? They're on their way there, but they're not there yet.
Right.
Can you think of an example where having a book produced some extra leverage for them, a deal, a partnership, an acquisition, something that wouldn't have happened without the book?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know. So this guy here. All right, there we go.
We got a few books there.
Got a few books hanging around. I've got bookshelves all over. So Ken Russ, Blue Collar Cash. This was a book that sold to Harper. And he is a blue collar entrepreneur, but started a wildly successful business with hundreds of employees. But he grew it from nothing. But it really allowed him to scale in a whole new way once the book came out. It hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, got him on a bunch of podcasts, but also it really established him in his space as a successful, not only a successful entrepreneur, but also a leader in business culture. And that opened up a ton of doors for him, all kinds of new business arrangements, ended up doing a number of different conferences and stuff. Sure. You'll see this a lot with authors. Kim Perrell, she's pretty big on social media. This was one of the recent books that we sold. And it was a USA Today bestseller just this last year.
Congrats.
Very successful entrepreneur, sold her first business. Well, it might not have been her first, but she sold one of her big sales was like was in the $250,000 range, a tech company that she started. But she's actually done 3 books with us. And every time it's just it opens up a whole nother round of doors for her. It gives her a lot of content to draw from on her social platforms. That's one thing with the book is, it gives you all kinds of material for posting on social and sound bites and whatnot. But that in particular, I know for a fact that there's been numerous clients and investors that she's been able to connect with just through the visibility that she's gained through the book. And that's been the major driver to really spike her social platforms. And of course, once the big thing for her and for a lot of others is the conferences and the major events that you're now able to get into and show your authority on the stage because of the success of the book.
Let's make this just ridiculously practical for the person who is sitting here looking at it saying, I don't know if I could justify the expense of publishing this book or whatever. They're thinking through this and this would be a really good thing for them. Where does the ROI from the book actually show up? Sales velocity, retail expansion, enterprise partnerships, recruiting, acquisition. Like where do they start to look at this and say, I can point back to this and say that I see the ROI and it's 10x whatever I spent on this?
Yeah, great question. And there's been studies on this actually recently, exactly on books and what the ROI is for most authors. And most authors are making between 1.3, 1.5 times ROI on their book investment. And that's a broad brush stroke. It's not counting, and it's only counting within a year of publication. Okay. Whereas a book can really help you earn years and years and years. So what I tell a lot of authors is that the reason to write a book is for most professionals, nonfiction authors, people in your audience, is not book sales. It's not where you're getting. Sure. You're not getting life-changing money from your book sales, most likely, unless you're James Clear and you're selling 30, 40 million copies of the book. For the most authors, their book is going to sell a marginal amount, and you will not make life, especially if you're in the 20 million and scaling conversation. It's not going to make you life-changing money. Sure. But not the sales of the book. Where the ROI comes in is the opportunities that it opens up the visibility that it gives to your company. If you're, especially if you're like a life coach, speaker, anything like that, this opens up all kinds of doors to get media, to get visibility. And that's where the big ROI is in the opportunity. And the nice, and also another thing that the book really opens up is it spikes your authority on SEO and also with AI. So if you have a book, especially if it's a bestseller, that shows up really strong on authority, and so that book is going to show up really high when people look you up, to see who you are just by looking up your name. But also it helps build you and your company also in the SEO value because of the book and all of the publicity or whatever, however the book has been mentioned along with your name or your company's name. This really helps to build that presence. And that's something that lasts years. Some of our clients are still benefiting, 10, 15 years later, from having a book and just adding that authority to their name. So that's a big boost. But that's the ROI. The ROI is on opportunities and what it does. A lot of our clients look at it where, within a year or two, does having this book and the visibility that it gives me, how many more clients might I get based on this? And for most, that's a net positive in a big way.
Well, okay. So to make sure that I summarize then what I heard, you're getting publicity, which there's a cost to get that publicity otherwise, right? And so like you're saving money on the PR that you're getting by getting onto, ideally good shows or Bloomberg or Good Morning America or whatever. You're getting other publicity, let's just say internet publicity, right? You're getting onto other podcasts, you're getting onto blogs, you're getting the SEO authority from that as well because you're getting these link backs. That's benefiting you then from an AI standpoint. You also now have the content from the book that you can use as quotes to turn into social media content. Because a lot of times we do sit there and think, I don't know if I have anything really that exciting to say this, Thursday morning. But you're like, well, I've got a book full of 200 pages. I can find something in my book that I can use. And so all of those are things that you can continue to benefit from.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all of those really help. And what's nice too is it helps if you're the author of the book, it not only helps you with the company that you're with, but it follows you. It follows with you, right? Ideally, like, you're not going to want to maybe like on the cover of the book, when you put the author, like Tom says, founder of Paychecks, that's great. But it's also, it's not a Paychecks book. It benefits the company, but it's his book. So, and he's kind of in his, he's retired and he's doing most of his own thing. He still does investing and everything. But for other younger entrepreneurs that are, or CEOs, especially execs, lifetime of a CEO is what, 3 to 5 years typically. So, you want a book that's going to carry you along. The Snowflake founder, Frank Slootman, we did that book, Amp It Up, which is a great marketing book. It was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. That book is something that he can come, even though it helped, it was a major asset for him while he was at Snowflake, it's something that he now carries with him and is able to continue to benefit him as an individual beyond just the company at the time that it benefited while he was a CEO still there. Well, he's still a CEO there.
I love that. Something else that you told me that I hadn't considered is that even outside of the ROI to the business or personally, it has some internal impact as well, because it can function within the company, especially teams that are past the 50, 100 employees. You could use it to help those teams maybe understand what you're thinking. And I actually do this. It's one of the things I like about the podcast is I use it in that way where it's like my team now has 137, I think now with this one, 138 episodes worth of my thoughts and thoughts from my guests about like, how do I think e-commerce businesses should grow? So when our customers are like, what else can we do? We've tried this, what else? It's like, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that we can use to say, well, let's point to this. A book can function in a similar way. Like, what are some examples of books being used in that way where they're, you gave me the one, obviously, where the Paychecks are passing it out, but outside of passing it out, like where they're using this almost as like an internal resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what Snowflake did, and they actually did a follow-up book as well, where all the marketing principles and his ideas about marketing and what it means and how to really optimize that approach, and that's something I mean, there's something really nice about it because it reflects the culture of the leader of the company. It's in their voice. It's often drawn. It's often drawing analogies and other things from that person's experience, and it really captures. It really captures your leader and their ideals in a long form, meaty book, and something that's arguably going to be more entertaining and palatable than, let's say, your corporate handbook,
Sure.
For your team, right? And so that kind of cultural element, something that you can really rally around. You can draw quotes from it, but also just something that people can access a little bit of the personality of the leader, as well as what makes them tick and their principles and their values. It's something that really draws it all together. Great examples, Principles from Ray Dalio.
Yeah.
That actually Principles. It actually stemmed from an internal document that he used and shared with this team at Bridgewater, and then that turned into this whole book, which became a massive international bestseller in Principles. But that's a perfect example of something that has real value for the team that they can really sit with and absorb and remember all the analogies. I mean, people really remember. It's hard for people to remember just bullet lists of information and data. But when you have stories and analogies, metaphors, and something that's written in a way that's accessible, that's personality, that's stuff that people can really absorb and remember.
Our brains work in stories. I think that's even the whole principle behind the method of the loci, right? Or something along the lines where it's like you create these really vivid pictures and you place them around in the different spots within this imaginary castle, and now you've got this story that goes along with it, so you can memorize pi out to 50,000 digits.
Right.
That's only because of that. I want to talk about some of the objections that people might have, and this one is for, let's say, boards. Boards might panic at this idea. You called this out a little bit ago. The CEOs maybe only going to be around for 3 to 5 years. Is a board going to say, we need our CEO to be 100% dedicated to this company and growth of this company, and this book that they are writing is a distraction from that? How do you get over that objection?
Yeah, it's easier to get the marketers on board and the CFO or the CRO than it is, maybe the COO. But
Sure.
For the most part, we've had a lot of support from teams. Often they're actually financing the book. So there's something to consider as well. If you're an individual at a major company, or if you're, or if you're the owner of the company, this is definitely a business write-off. It's something that's directly tied to promoting your company and your marketing assets. For most companies, just in terms of like raw numbers, if you're going to look at just ghostwriting, because most executives, they don't have time to sit down and pen out every single thing, and they want to have a professional that's going to help like move things along. So most executives are working with a close collaborator or a ghostwriter. At that level, you're probably minimum $50,000-$60,000, but most often it's going to be like in the hundreds to thousands of dollars, and it goes all the way up. I mean, J.R. Morgan is up over $1 million easy, but most executives are kind of in the $100,000 to $250,000 all in for their book. That can really range depending on the circumstances, but let's just go with that. For most companies that are 20 million to 100 million, that's a pretty small marketing spend, especially considering the ROI and visibility and what it really, the leverage that it gives you. You had mentioned PR before and saying that it can be expensive to get PR, right? But the problem with PR, and this is the thing that drives people nuts about PR, is that a publicist will they'll say, oh yeah, I'll charge $14,000 a month to do your PR, and then at the end of the month or two, they'll show you all the list of the hundreds of outlets that they to show all the work they did. But guess what? You only got like 2 tiny podcasts and no national stuff whatsoever. Meanwhile, you're still shelling out that monthly. You know why? Because PR needs a reason to be able to get you that media. Just because you hire a publicist doesn't mean you're going to get any PR. That's the nice thing. That's the nice thing about a book, is it really actually it's a key card to get to get that PR. But anyway, so going back to the board, we found, like, for instance, the Board of Paychecks loved the idea. They loved everything that the book could do for the company, and the amount that it cost to do it was really marginal compared to their other costs. Now, not everybody does it that way. Some we've had clients where they have been resistance with the board, or they want to have the book kind of be theirs so that they don't have. You can definitely get too many cooks in the kitchen. Like if you got like the whole board's got to read the book and the drafts. And,
Death by committee.
It could be a nightmare. Yeah, it could be a nightmare. When we work with companies, and we do a lot. We work with a lot of big companies. We worked with Microsoft. On a big book. And Target was another one. What we require is that there is a single spokesperson that speaks for the entire exec team. They can read and edit and do whatever they want with the drafts as long as it all goes through one person, and we're just dealing with one person. Otherwise, it just gets, it can really submarine it. But no, most we found that most boards are really excited for the book. It's just a matter of whether you want to have, if they're paying for it, the chances are you're going to have to, they're going to have to be a part of the checks and balances of what's going to go into that book and how it's going to be said. That's definitely not a challenge you can't overcome. Usually you'll have somebody from the company that will read over drafts just to make sure that it aligns with company policies or cultures or whatever. But it does complicate things a little bit.
You answered my next objection, which is, but what if I'm not a good writer? And to your point, it's like, that's what you guys do. You come in and help people who are writing. So let me go to the next one then, which is, I haven't made it yet, right? Like there's something else that I have to attain first. How do you get over that objection? Say it's like, no, this is a great time to start publishing a book.
Yeah, that's an easy one to answer. And and right after I'll talk a little bit about the I'm not a writer one. Because there's a little bit more nuance that gets people caught up there. On the I haven't made it yet. That's a common mistake. They think I need to really have sold my company for $250,000 before I write the book. I need to have made it into my 50s before I have any wisdom I can share with everybody. What people forget is that your best teacher is usually someone that's recently accomplished where you want to be, right? Like if you look at it as a ladder or a mountain, that you're climbing, someone that's just climbed a quarter of the way up the mountain, they're going to have really recent and interesting and palpable advice for you because they just did it, right? So wherever you are, you have something to say to the person that hasn't done what you've done. And any business person that's even has a business that's making $250,000 a year is still someone that's done something that others haven't, and they've learned things over the course of doing that that they're gonna have wisdom and advice and sometimes sometimes the billionaire who's made it and is at the and is 75, 80 years old. Sometimes they really don't have they don't remember what it was like back when they first were carving it out. And if they do, it was a different world back then, right? So, the fact that wherever you're at in your journey, if you've had some level of success, chances are you have some really good insights to give people that are coming right behind you. The other thing is the benefits of the book the benefits for you for writing the book are compounding. So the longer you wait, the longer you're delaying the value that the book can have for you, right? It's just like compounding interest, right? What would anyone giving advice on finances will tell you? Invest early. Invest in the S&P. You're 15 years old. Yes, put money in the S&P because guess what? Over time, that's going to be a good investment, and it compounds over time. So the book is the same way. You can always come up with another book once you've made it, right? Get a book now, let it work for you, build your authority, let it get you the clients, the extra traction, the extra SEO value, the publicity. You have something to say if you've learned anything, you have something that you can teach. And then, come up with another book once you're further down the line. I want to key in on no time to write or not a good writer, because sometimes people get caught up on this and they think that even if or they might think, hiring a ghostwriter is basically just, putting your stamp on somebody else's work. A ghostwriter, well, an ethical ghostwriter, that's not how this works, right? A ghostwriter is just the same reason why you don't do your own taxes. You're not an expert in doing taxes. It would be a waste of your time and energy to do them, or to do your own dental work, right?
Sure.
You want to hire a professional to be handling those things. And a true ghostwriter, a ghostwriter that's an ethical ghostwriter. Sure, are there some people that just say, hey, write me a book and I can put my stamp on it? Sure, that happens, not with our company, but I'm sure that happens out there.
Sure.
But a good ghostwriter is someone that's going to, their whole job is to get your voice on the page. And like I said before, a lot of execs, they don't even realize what it is and their habits and their mindset and the different principles that they have. Sometimes they don't even know what they are until they're getting it out. And having someone to interview you and draw that out and start to kind of frame it into a story and to understand how it all fits together, and then put it into a way, classic example, a lot of people are really great at speaking, public speaking, but they're not so great at putting it into writing. This is exactly what a writer does. They're getting what you're saying and from the interviews and getting it into a format that readers can understand and that they can connect. And it's really about getting your authentic voice and information into a medium that people can understand, and a voice that people can understand. So, it's all you're still, and that's why we say that the author is still the author. Even if you hire a ghostwriter, you are still the author. All the information is coming from you. All of the ideas, everything is still yours. We're just a sophisticated pen that's really putting those words in a way that people are going to be able to understand them. But that still sounds authentically like the author. It's really important.
Yeah, that is important, right? Because it's got to sound like you. I think that's good. I want to talk about the playbook after the book then. So let's say we publish the book today. What are the smartest founders doing over the next 90 days to maximize the fact that book just came out today?
Yeah, well, hopefully they've done a lot of work before it publishes to set that all up. But yeah, I mean, they're going on podcasts like this one. They're, that pub week right after is a key time to really get a ton of your of media, and also you want to kind of drive book sales during that week anyway, because when you're looking at bestseller lists, all of your sales leading up to pub date count for pub week. So if your book will go on sale like a year before it actually, it'll be up there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it'll be on way ahead of time. Depending on the publisher, it could be like a year. There might not be the cover yet, but it'll be your name and metadata and everything about the book, and you can buy it. You can buy it like way in advance. As it gets closer to pub date and they're starting to promote it, obviously the cover will come. They'll probably edit the description. But again, like leading up to pub day, it's going to be for sale. All those sales that happen leading up to pub date all count as sales during that first week. So a lot of authors are really trying to build sales to happen during that week, because that's your best chance, because you're drawing from weeks and weeks and weeks, months of sales to hit the bestseller list. Because a lot of bestseller lists are weekly lists. Like the USA Today is a weekly list. The Times has both weekly and monthly, but the weekly lists, there's weekly lists in every category, every major category. So and also when the book is fresh and just coming out, that's when usually it's the easiest time to get media, because it's like a media event. Sure. Media consider the book a media event. So the first week, month, couple months, that's the time that you're not going to have too many things in your schedule. And like if there's everything up into that time, it actually doesn't take that much of an interruption into the most executive schedules to write the book. You do interviews, a little bit every week. You read the material a little bit every week. But that month right after pub date is one that you definitely want to have some flexibility, because that's when you're going to be, Fox News is going to call or Bloomberg or whatever, and you're going to want to be able to have that flexibility to go and do the piece and make the most out of your media. But yeah, that's that whole stretch, even months after, is when you want to be doing most of your media events.
You have worked on some pretty fun books. We've talked about a lot of the billionaires, but you've also written the books for magicians like Oz Perlman,
Yep.
Read Your Mind, Maroon 5. I have to imagine that you've learned some things along the way from these experts in their fields. What's one of your favorite things that you've learned from someone while writing their book?
That's a good question. Well, it's been so many. Since you mentioned Read Your Mind, which was Oz Perlman, and that's a recent New York Times bestseller, and it's been doing really, really well. His book is, even though he's a mentalist, like similar to a magician, his book is really practical for anybody, whether you're in your personal life or your business. Helping to understand how people think and how to just get an advantage. It's a simple, tiny little thing. So this is not like it's not like a life changer, but it's really helped me. Is just a simple trick when you're meeting people and they tell you your name at a party or whatever. It's so easy, right? You leave that conversation, and even though it's been like 35 seconds, you go back to them and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea what their name is anymore. And this happens at business meetings, happens at sales, it happens at conferences, and it's such an advantage. Everyone knows it. It's such an advantage when someone is able to, they just look at you and say, William, sure. And you're like, oh my God, they remember my name. Like, it's like, it catches you. And, in sales, we also say, you should say their name in the call. It helps make them feel like, it'll get their attention. It'll help connect you to the client. And it's a simple little trick. He says, just ask them how they spell it and then relate it to something else. Like, I had a friend in college named, William, or, oh, that's an interesting spelling, William with a Y or whatever, if that's the case. And just that little extra layer that you put onto that greeting will help you remember that name. And it's a great trick. It's a great hack.
Really
it's helped
trick.
me. Yeah, it's helped me in a lot of conversations. So yeah, just a small thing. Another simple thing that's interesting another simple hack from his book is he was talking about going from when he was first doing magic. He was just a kid, and he would go table to table at a restaurant. He would get permission from the manager or whatever to kind of do magic tricks at this one restaurant. I'm going to mess up the story a little bit, but I think it'll still come through the meaning of it. And he found that when he would go to a table and would say, "Hey, may I do a magic trick for you?" It felt interruptive. It felt like an imposition. It felt like, that he was trying, like, it wasn't part of the flow. It felt like something, it wasn't connecting with them. It seemed like more of an annoyance than anything.
Sure.
So he switched it all around where he would say, and also, how long is this going to take? There's all these things going through your head, and we're so used to being bombarded with spam and stuff that it just immediately it feels like something you're going to want to push away from. Mm-hmm. Instead, he would approach it. He would go to the table and he'd say, "Hey, guess what? It's your lucky day. I hope I only have a little bit of time, so just going to do this really quick. This is the manager wanted to sent me over to give you this gift. Here." And then he would do the trick. But he's established a couple little things there. He's let them know already. It won't take much time. He's established that he's actually not an available quantity. That he actually, is only going to be there for a bit. So it creates urgency. And then now it's a gift from the manager rather than me just coming to the table trying to impress you with a magic trick. And so, like, kind of just flipping that around to let them feel like they're getting something special, that they know it's not going to take long, and then leave them wanting more as he leaves. It's just a great principle in general, for sales, for meetings, and just setting the stage for a memorable encounter with a stranger, with a cold prospect.
That's a brilliant move. I would love to pick his brain sometime, because those subtle little things that you don't think are that big of a deal, but when you say it like that, you're like, that's huge. I'm not a mentalist. I worked in a hospital, though, years and years and years ago, and I used to pretend a little bit, right? So it's like I can remember there was this time where I saw the person before they got changed into their gown, and she had like this shirt on that had like the little Pisces symbol. And I can remember then it's like, we're in like the operating room or something, and it's just like, it's conscious sedation, so she's still awake. And I just remember being like, I don't know why, but I see this fish swimming around and it has a hook in its mouth and there's like a P on this hook. Does it mean anything to you? And she's like, I'm a Pisces. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm getting. It's just having fun, just pretending like it. But I feel like there is something to that where it's like, you're those subtle little language word choices, the way that you're phrasing things can either make somebody feel as if you're completely in tune with them or you're a disruption. And I do like where he went with that, like eliminate the disruption.
Right, exactly. And right away, it doesn't feel like an imposition. It feels like something special, like Will Guidara talks about that a little bit in his book. Will Guidara, it was one of the founding members of 11 Madison Park, and which is a real prominent 3-star restaurant in New York. And he has a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, which is a fantastic book for customer service. And this is one of the principles that he talks about in his book too, is just, if you always want to leave, you want to be special and surprising, but never an imposition. So like if you're forcing people to have, if you're gonna have a 3-hour meal, it better be filled with things that feel like a gift to them, that are going over and above, and so that they're feeling like they're being made special rather than being forced to be a part of a long ceremony. But yeah, that book has a bunch of goodies.
That's on my list to read. So that's funny that you called that out, because that's one of the ones that I want to read this year. So it's a good recommendation. I want to get into switching into who is Kevin Anderson, because I think it's fun to get to know the human being behind all of these wise words that you've shared today. You told me you grew up poor on a farm in Alberta. You planted 500,000 trees. You worked oil rigs, rodeo, lifeguarded. I mean, how did this level of range shape your obsession with curiosity and problem solving?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the whole journey has been a lot of luck and a lot of jumping on opportunities. But I think a thread throughout is just an insatiable curiosity. Always just love to learn things, keep an open mind on to learn and to experience new things. It's where my travel passion comes from, is just, love just learning from people that are in entirely different environments, and just you just learn so much from trying new things and just exploring. It's a stupid Smash Mouth song, right? You never know if you don't go. It's just, you don't know what you don't know until you actually experience it. So that's why, from a young age, I just really loved just trying new things and just exploring and trying to optimize and solve problems and do it the best. Like, with tree planting, I won't get into the mundane details, but it was paid per piece. So the more trees you planted, the more you get paid. And and we were in like mountainous areas, the cut blocks. It was really rough. Most people, not most, but probably a quarter of the team quit within the first week or so, because it's not great work. But just trying to optimize every little thing, trying to optimize every movement of the shovel, how you bag up your trees, just mundane things, but just really focusing on really trying to shave off every little second, kind of almost like an athlete would do, like every stroke, what clothing am I wearing? What am I doing with my footwear? Like down to the tiniest things. Like, how can we just shave? Because if we shave off, if we only shave off a quarter of a millionth of a second, whatever you want to say, it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're doing enough of those, it all adds up, and ends up being a meaningful advantage. And so I just really liked thinking about how to optimize all of these things, when I was doing them. So that's why, that's how you end up planting 500,000 trees in a couple of years.
I got to be honest. I pictured this differently. I pictured you like Johnny Appleseed out there with a bag of seeds, just tossing them out there. I planted 500,000. You're out there with a shovel planting 500,000 trees.
Yeah, so the trees are seedlings. They're like this.
Yeah.
They're like a foot and a half tall. You bag up with about 200 to 300 seedlings. And we would get hella dropped in. So we'd be on a helicopter.
No way.
We felt like we were like in Nam. Like we thought we were so cool. Like we were like with our little shovels. They're like little short shovels, and you pick you up in a helicopter, drop you off on the cut block. It was pretty wild. I mean, there's like bears and whatever. I mean, it was pretty rugged. But yeah, you would literally, my best day was about 8,000 trees in one day. And you're literally just opening up a hole, throwing the tree in it, closing the hole. I mean, there's little things like it has to be a certain depth. It has to be in the right kind of soil. You can't just plant it anywhere. But there's a rhythm to it. And there's also a rhythm with how you work the land, because you have a certain block, you got to go in and out. If you finish all your trees in your bag and you're way out in the middle of nowhere, now you got to walk back. It's a total waste of time. You could have been planting. So you want to always plant your way back. You want to so there's a lot of I mean, this is basic stuff, but but all those kind of things are helpful in just how you think about business, how you think about what you're doing, and just optimizing your time. Make sure that you're planting back towards refilling your bag instead of walking back empty. So those, I always like solving these kinds of problems. And then what really turned into with the company, because I never really equated it to entrepreneurship or running a business. I always thought I was just going to be an employee. I don't know why, because obviously the way I was geared was always creative, and it was always trying to solve problems. But for some reason, I think just the way I grew up, I just always kind of imagined I would just be, I would just work as an employee and get a weekly paycheck and would get an hourly rate or whatever. But I couldn't help myself when I was in grad school. I could just seeing opportunities and jumping on them, and the first one was a classic example of how a lot of entrepreneurs start. Is I was at a company, and I just thought I could do it better than
Sure.
the way they were doing it. It was and I could see that the value for me would just be so much higher. I was tutoring. It was like a high-end tutoring service. They mostly had people that were graduate. I was never the most brilliant student, but I worked really, really hard in my undergrad, and I treated it like a job, like 8 in the morning till 5. I just would that was school time, and I was able to do well enough that I got into Harvard for graduate school.
Wow.
But it was not. Yeah, it was just grit. It was not my intellectual abilities that got me there. But when I was at Harvard, I was in this tutoring company, and and I was in a session, and and they needed to stop. It was the end of the session, and you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what they're paying and all that kind of stuff. There's all this smoke and mirrors, right? And she said, "Look, I need you to stay an hour longer. I'll pay you whatever they pay you." And I said, "Okay, well, sure." And I told her, because the exam was tomorrow, and I felt bad, and we're not really supposed to do it, but I was like, "Okay, sure. I'll do one more, and you can just pay me directing. We won't tell. What they don't know won't hurt them." And when I told her my hourly rate, which I think was like $25 or something, her mouth just dropped, because she was paying them like $80.
Wow.
And she was like, "I'll pay you twice I'll pay you twice. I'll pay you 50." And she still felt like she was getting a great deal.
Win-win.
And right there, I was just like, the bells were just going off. I was like, okay, I can figure this out. Why don't I just start marketing myself? I can market myself as, an Ivy League. I can, and then, eventually I got too busy. I worked well. Craigslist was fresh. There was Craigslist.
Love
PayPal was relatively new at the time, but it allowed me to be able to do financial transactions with credit cards, I started selling myself as a tutor. And when I got too busy, and I think this is what happens with a lot of people. And this is probably not really geared at your audience, which has already come past this, but as soon as I reach capacity, it just seemed logical to say, well, let's hire more people, right? I've got too many people that I can serve. Let's hire more. But with this whole thing, and I think this is something that really translated into the businesses that I ended up kind of scaling and where I'm at now, was just always trying to do things as best as possible. And I know that sounds like an obvious thing, but I think in the service industry, and the same with like e-commerce, like you can choose what level of service you want to give to your clients, and you can choose what kind of products you want to be associated with. Do you want to be the person that's selling mid-grade stuff to a broader range of people, which means more clients, more problems, more product? Or do you want to sell a real high-end product at a higher value to fewer people? And from early on, I just felt like I'd rather do that. I would rather have the very best writers, the very best editors, the very best process, the very best books, and of course I have to charge the most because those all cost, right? There's a cost to doing all of that. But I've found, at least so far, is that, that you scale the cost accordingly, and as long as you are really providing the best, the premium, the most premium, and it's easy to find because you can look around, you can see what everyone else is doing, and you can just make sure you're doing more or better or whatever. Find your competition and just go elevate from there. And I found that there's a buyer for that. As long as you are able to execute, there's going to be a buyer. So you scale your pricing accordingly. And I don't know. I know I know, Tom Golisano, he would tell you the big bucks are in high volume, small margins, whatever. And I get that. But for me, I didn't want to have a company with 500, 600, W-2s. I wanted to have a smaller company. I guess if you count our 1099s, we're kind of there. But anyway, we really wanted to have a high margin, high value product and service, and really take value in giving the best of the best and feeling good about that. So, optimizing things, even like, it sounds silly on tree planting, but even then, I mean, that's all part of the same principles that I still, put into the business now.
I love that. You told me that you've been to, I think, something like 200 Michelin restaurants.
More than that. Yeah.
Okay, so I love to eat. I love to cook. What is the best meal you've had at one of these Michelin? Or maybe it's not at a Michelin restaurant. Like, no, it's this hole in the wall here.
Oh, it is. It is though. And that's, and I'm so impressed by. I mean, I love food. I love experiencing everything, but the amount of artistry and innovation and execution and everything that goes into being able to put together like a 3-star Michelin restaurant. And, there's plenty of, for people who don't know, I mean, there's plenty of, some people think fancy food or fine dining is just overpriced, pomp and circumstance. That's not the kind of food that gets me. I like stuff that's really interesting, innovative, pushing the limits of food, and that also tells a story about the place and the chef. But the best meal is definitely, for me, I think it's still the Fat Duck, which is Heston Blumenthal's restaurant outside of London. It's in a town called Bray, and that it's a whole experience. It's not just the food, which is incredible, but they even, I mean, it's almost a science experiment. Like when you're there, there's one particular part of the meal, at least I've been a couple times. The last time I went, I brought my team there. So I love to go do these restaurants, but I love to bring people that would never get the chance to have that kind of experience. I love to bring them with and just share that together. And so we're at the London Book Fair. I brought my whole team, that was the London team that was there. We all went together. It was like one of the most memorable. It was a great team building experience too. But anyway, one of the experiments, so to speak, was they took you to a room and and they didn't tell you, but they had a bottle of wine. And you close your eyes and you open up, and there was like loud, ominous music. It was all red, flashing red. And then we would all taste this wine and we would describe to each other what it tasted like. And then they brought another bottle out and they poured it. And then they said, before we proceeded, actually, I might have got it reversed. I think they did that one first. Before we proceeded, they said, okay, I want you to think about some of your favorite things, your favorite memories. And there was nice, calm, like kind of massage, like a nice massage parlor music. And of course, we were all really excited to be there because it was a great experience already so far at the restaurant. And we tasted this wine and we all described it and what it tasted like and just how it felt drinking it. And of course, it was what we didn't know is the exact same bottle of wine, but the tasting notes were completely different between one and the other. They were talking, and this is what I like about this restaurant is that they're not so pretentious to say that this $600 bottle of wine or whatever it was is objectively the best tasting bottle of wine you're ever going to have. They acknowledge that experience and what you bring to the table literally has a lot to do with how you're going to feel and taste. It's going to have a real physical impact on your experience. And so the same bottle of wine got completely different tasting notes, and it really blew our minds because we were being very authentic. Like it wasn't like I had no idea that it was going to be the same bottle of wine. So but that's just one of the many. They do all kinds of stuff. I mean, they make you a scrambled egg ice cream with liquid nitrogen, and they do all kinds of stuff. It's a real experience. But
I think the lesson there for e-commerce merchants is this is why your packaging and shipping and everything matters so much. It's like that experience can literally make the difference between it being the same product and being something that people rave about or something that people return and complain about.
That's exactly right. And Will Guidara in his book talks about that too. It's just like, people will remember how they felt. They will remember the experience. They won't remember the details, the numbers, they might remember some, but people remember how you made them feel. If you make them feel special or something amazing, like Apple figured it out early, right? You open the box of the phone, the iPhone, it feels like they could just, even pulling the box apart is kind of, my kids would call it satisfying, is that one of their favorite words. Yeah. And I just had a product the other day and it was the same. I didn't expect it, but it came in this amazing packaging and it was all just real robust. And it sounds so silly. It was just really nice colors and very robust, smooth cardboard, but it was done in a very well-designed packaging. And it made it feel right away. It made me feel like, oh, these people care. Like it made me feel like this company cared about their product and cared about me, which I might be the fool, but that's how it made you feel. And it makes a big difference for sure.
All right. Back to food then. What's the weirdest thing that you've ever eaten?
Oh gosh. I mean, I've eaten a lot of stuff like crickets and I've eaten a garter snake. That's pretty weird.
Like not just out there in the wild, like this was served to you?
No. Well, yeah. See now I'm outing my more rustic beginnings. So when we grew up, we couldn't afford we didn't eat much beef, right? Even though we grew up on a farm and we had some cattle eventually, we only ate wild meat. So we hunted for all of our food. We had chickens and turkeys and stuff on the farm. I always like to think of survival mode. Like we would go out, we would do hikes or camping trips for a couple of days in the middle of nowhere where, and back then there's no cell phones, there's no, digital maps or anything, of course. And, lots of people do this. It's not that amazing, but maybe for 15-year-old, 16-year-old, not too many are doing camping trips to the middle of nowhere where there's no roads and you have nowhere of contacting, home. But my parents were chill about this kind of stuff. And I love to just think about survival mode. Like how would I live off the land? And so, at one point, we did garter snake is probably the most strange, I think, thing that I've ever eaten. It wasn't good.
That was my follow-up question. Did it taste good? And you're like, no, 0 out of 10, don't recommend.
not much meat. You're not going to get very far.
Yeah, no, that's good. Kevin, I have really enjoyed getting to know you and learning from you today. If people wanted to work with you or follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, just connect over email. The website, kawriting.com, like writing a book, kawriting.com, gives a lot of information. My email direct is just kevin@kawriting.com. I'll be happy to respond and connect you with someone that's going to be able to to help out. But yeah, we're happy to work with anybody and it's not just ghostwriting books. It's anybody who's in the book writing process, whether they're writing a book and they want a good coach to guide them through the whole process, whether they've already written a book, they want to edit it and they want to figure out how to get the most out of publishing, how to hit the bestseller lists, how to get a good publisher. We're happy to help with all of that.
That's really cool. Well, again, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and sharing your time with us. It's been really good to learn from you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for joining in. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.